101 useless facts about IndyCar. Let's go. The only drivers to take wins under 3 American open wheel sanctioning bodies did them in 2 stints. Sebastian Bourdais and Ron Hunter-Reay won in kart, Champ Car, and IndyCar, while Al Unser Jr. and Arie Luyendyk won under USAC, kart, and IRL sanctioning. The confusing history of American open wheel sanctioning has led to quite a few statistical quirks, my favorite being that Johnny Rutherford was the champion of both the USAC National Championship and the Kart IndyCar Series in 1979. Due to the Indy 500 counting for F1 points in the 1950s, 1952 winner Troy Ruttman was officially the youngest F1 winner until 2003. He won that year's 500 at 22 and was 20 days younger than Bruce McLaren was when he won a real F1 race at Sebring in 1959. On the other end of the spectrum, Sam Hanks and Lee Wallard both won Indy 500s into their 40s, which places them 6th and 8th on the oldest F1 winners list. On the topic of Sam Hanks, it took him 13 tries to win the 500 in 1957, the most all time. Tony Kanaan and Joseph Newgarden hold the joint record for second all-time with 11 tries each before winning. There have been 460 races under IRL IndyCar sanctioning since 1996. Buddy Lazier won the 50th race, Elio Castroneves won the 100th race, Dario Franchitti won the 200th race, Simon Pagenaud won the 300th race, and Joseph Newgarden won the 400th race. Tom Sneva won the 1978 USAC National Championship for Team Penske despite not winning a single race. Stingray Robb has a better average finish in ARCA West than he does in IndyCar. IndyCar raced at Chicagoland from 2001 to 2010, and the average margin of victory per race was just 0.3644 seconds. Patrick Carpentier finished 10th in the 05 IndyCar Series points, all the while getting an average finish of exactly 10.0. Buick supplied car with engines in the late 80s and early 90s and set a track record of the 500 in 1985. However, only 2 Buick engines ever finished an entire 500. The most laps Scott Dixon led in a win was 206, and he achieved this twice. Once at Richmond in 2003, and again at Texas in 2021. The 1913 Indy 500's margin of victory was, fittingly, 13 minutes. Hiro Matsushita ran 117 car races and only finished on the lead lap one time. It was the 1992 Long Beach Grand Prix, and he was still last on track. Roberto Moreno scored just 15 points in his entire Formula One career, which was less points than what he scored at just the 1999 kart race at Laguna Seca. Despite running 26 IndyCar races and 2 Formula One races, Pietro Fittipaldi has 0 starts in any Road to Indy Series or FIA Global Pathway Series above what we now consider Formula Regional Europe. He does, however, have a late model track championship at Hickory Motor Speedway. Scuderia Corsa entered the Indy 500 twice and finished 17th both times. Elio Castroneves made his 200th career start on an oval at this year's 500, but he is still tied on wins on ovals with Joseph Newgarden at 18, despite Joseph only having 78 starts on ovals. Epic bonus fact alert. Hi guys. I recorded all of the audio between the Detroit and Gateway races of this season. The video obviously came out after Gateway. Of course, Newgarden won Gateway in his 79th oval start, so now the aforementioned previous fact is a little bit inaccurate. Now Newgarden actually has more wins on ovals than Elio Castroneves does, which is pretty interesting, I think. Back to the video. Willie T. Ribbs ran a single Indy Lights race at Baltimore in 2011 and was by far the oldest driver on the grid that day, as he was born in 1955. Connor Daly, whom he raced against that day, was born in December 1991, by which point Ribbs had multiple years of Trans Am, IMSA, and kart competition under his belt. Connor's dad, Derek, is only 2 years older than Willie. Ed Carpenter's real first name is Everett. Romain Grosjean is the only driver on the 2026 grid to race directly against both Michael Schumacher in F1 and Mick Schumacher in IndyCar. No entry with a car number in the 70s has won Indianapolis 500. Sprint car legend Chris Windom has one Indy next start at the 2019 Freedom 100. He crashed once in testing and once in the race itself, with the latter incident also ending the day of a 17-year-old rookie named David Malukas. Teo Fabi won 4 kart races and the Indy 500 pole in his rookie year in 1984 and only won a single race in the next 12 years. I pressed the random tab and racing reference until I found something IndyCar related. It took me 4 tries until I landed on the 1909 Lowell Trophy race held in Lowell, Massachusetts. The track was 10 miles long, the race took 5 hours, and the margin of victory was a clean 19 minutes. JJ Yaley made 8 IRL starts before he was ever a NASCAR driver and finished 9th in the 1998 500, finishing ahead of Scott Sharp, Arie Luyendyk, Scott Goodyear, and Tony Stewart. He and Stewart are also the only 2 people to complete the USAC Triple Crown of Dirt Racing Championships. Everyone knows that Andre Lauder only has 1 Formula One start back in Belgium in 2014, but he also only has 1 Champ Car start, that coming in Mexico City in 2002. Scott Dixon debuted in Champ Car at 2000 at the age of 20, and since then he's become the most experienced driver in American open wheel history by races entered, ahead of Mario Andretti at 424 starts. To put his career longevity into context, if 23-year-old rookie Dennis Hauger were to match this total and the IndyCar schedule stayed at 17 races a year, he would achieve that number of starts sometime during the year 2048 when he'd be 45 years old. Dixon, however, doesn't hold the record for longest American open wheel career by time spent in the sport, as AJ Foyt attempted at least one race from 1957 to 1993, a truly obscene time span of 36 years. Using this same rate, Dixon reached his mark in 2037, Joseph Newgarden in 2048, and Dennis Hauger in 2062. Current NASCAR Cup driver and 2021 Daytona 500 champion Michael McDowell were in the final two Champ Car races in 2005, neither of which took place in the US. He's also the 2004 Star Mazda champion. Joseph Newgarden is the most recent IndyCar champion who is also an Indy Lights champion. Dan Welton is the most recent IndyCar champion who is also a USF 2000 champion. If you're wondering about the USF Pro 2000 series, no champion from that series has ever won an IndyCar title. As far as I could find, the first IndyCar driver to be born was J. Walter Christie, who had a much more famous life as an inventor. He pioneered this suspension system for tanks and was a trailblazing early automotive driver who did a ton of racing at the turn of the century. He only appeared in a single AAA race in 1905 and was born in the possibly ancient year of 1865, only a month after the end of the American Civil War and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and before the invention of the light bulb and dynamite. He died at age 77 in 1944, before the end of World War II, when AJ Foyt wasn't even 10 years old. Kyle Kaiser has the same amount of road to Indy wins as he does IndyCar starts. Scott Dixon's 100th IndyCar podium was the 2018 race at Gateway. Will Power won that race. Will Power's 100th IndyCar podium was the 2024 Grand Prix of Alabama at Barber. Scott McLaughlin won that race. So close. Speaking of Scotts, there's been at least one driver named Scott in every IRL IndyCar race since the split 1996. The Scotts in question have included Scott Sharp, Scott Brayton, Scott Goodyear, Scott Harrington, Scott Mayer, Scott Dixon, and Scott McLaughlin. One of those Scotts, Scott Mayer, is the father of current NASCAR Raleigh Series driver Sam Mayer, and he made 6 IRL race attempts between 2002 and 2005. He DNQ'd once, failed Indy rookie orientation twice, and DNF'd due to crashing thrice. In the nearly year-long span between the first 2013 race in Detroit and the 2014 Grand Prix of Alabama, Takuma Sato only finished 5 races. Mario Andretti's first USAC win was in 1965 at Hoosier Grand Prix at the IRP road course, which was also the first official road course race for IndyCar since the 1930s. Actor Frankie Muniz is currently making rounds in the NASCAR Truck Series right now, but his professional racing career actually started a decade and a half ago when he made his mark in the American open wheel scene in the Champ Car Atlantic Series. He competed against future IndyCar drivers like Robert Wickens, Simone Di Silvestro, J.R. Hildebrand, and James Hinchcliffe, and his best finish of the series was 4th at the Utah Motorsports Campus in 2009. The Texas Motor Speedway was initially built to have IndyCar race on the apron and NASCAR race on the proper banking, but this idea was canned before the track was finished because it was really stupid. American Open Wheel has raced at 2 tracks named Rockingham, neither of which being the one you're thinking of. The first IndyCar driver born in the 2000 to win a race was Colton Herta, born in the year 2000, winner of the only IndyCar race at COTA in 2019. The first driver born in the 1900s to win? Harlan Fengler, born in 1903 and winner of the 1923 race at the Kansas City Speedway board track. He only ran 18 total national championship races before he became a steward. Unfun footnote, his car was ran by a guy who did minstrel shows and did blackface. Davey Hamilton finished second in IRL points twice, in 1997 and 1998, but he never won a single race in the series. Connor Daly, since debuting in IndyCar in 2013, has raced with the numbers 41, 18, 43, 5, 88, 4, 17, 25, 59, 7, 20, 47, 60, 30, 24, 78, 76, and now 23. That's 18 numbers in just 133 starts, meaning that on average he raced with a different number every 7 races. To add to this, Scott Dixon has held just one number in the exact same time frame. Juan Pablo Montoya won the 1999 kart title on a tiebreaker due to having more wins than his rival, and lost the 2015 IndyCar title on a tiebreaker due to having less wins than his rival. Catherine Leggett completed more total laps in her 2026 double attempt than Kyle Larson did in 2025, despite finishing last in the 500 after crashing 30 minutes in. If it wasn't for Sebastian Bourdais winning in 2007, the Surfers Paradise Grand Prix would have gone its entire length as a race without having a single repeat winner. The most recent American open wheel race to not feature a single American driver in the top 10 was the 2011 Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. Scotsman Dario Franchitti won, and the top finishing American was J.R. Hildebrand in P11. I pressed the random tab in Racing Graphics until I found something IndyCar related again. It took me 5 tries until I landed on the 1929 Syracuse race, held at the Syracuse Mile at the New York State Fairgrounds in Syracuse, New York. Wilbur Shaw won the 100-lap race. Despite the Indy 500 being held 110 times since 1911, and despite the last name Smith being the most common name in the United States, there hasn't been a single driver with the last name Smith that has qualified for the Great Race. The only Smiths race at Indianapolis at all have been a few NASCAR drivers, an Indy NXT driver, and a MotoGP rider. Carmelo Anthony was a co-owner of Hemilton Racing in 2006. Since 2015, Dale Coyne Racing has fielded the following drivers: Pippin Man, Carlos Huertas, Rocky Moran Jr., Connor Daly, Rodolfo Gonzalez, Tristan Vautier, Francesco Giacconi, James Davison, Luca Filippi, Gabby Chavez, R.C. Anderson, Sebastian Bourdais, Esteban Gutierrez, Ed Jones, Zachary Clayman DeMello, Pietro Fittipaldi, Santino Ferrucci, Alex Pillow, Roman Grosjean, Cody Ware, Ryan Norman, David Malukas, Akuma Sato, Stingray Robb, Jack Harvey, Colin Brown, Luke Gatto, Nolan Steele, Catherine Legg, Hunter McElroy, Toby Sowery, Venus VK, Jacob Abel, and Dennis Hauger. And they've only gotten 2 wins. The May 18th, 1991 Bob Swirsky Superfans SNL sketch correctly predicted Rick Mears as the winner of that year's Indianapolis 500.
Well, we'll see you next week. Now, what if the Bears had entered the Preakness? Huh?
Brazilian Super GT and Super Formula legend João Paulo de Oliveira made one IndyCar start at Motegi in 2011. He finished last. Jacques Villeneuve and Jacques Villeneuve never raced against each other in IndyCar. Robbie Gordon did the double 5 times in his career, but he never finished all 400 laps of the Coke 600. Coming the closest in 2002, where he ran 399 laps in Charlotte, North Carolina. Current Myers Shank Racing co-owner Mike Shank made one IRL start in 1997 at the season finale in Las Vegas. He finished 17 laps down in 16th, but still beat Kenny Bragg, Eddie Cheever, Ari Lyondike, and Buddy Lazier. Carlos Munoz and Carlos Huertas are the only 2 people named Carlos to ever win an IndyCar race. They're both from Bogota, Colombia, and they only got their wins about a year apart from each other. James Hinchcliffe's last IndyCar podium was this race. Car number 7 has won the Indianapolis 500 2 times, with both races being won by guys named Bill. Bill Cummings won in 1934, and Bill Holland won in 1949. Although Nelson Piquet Jr. has pretty much raced everything with notable success in GP2, F1, NASCAR trucks, Brazilian Stock Car, and Formula E, he's never made a single IndyCar start. He does, however, have 2 Indy Next starts coming in Toronto in 2015. Casey Mears got a top 5 finish in his first kart start at Fontana in the year 2000. The 2014 US Sub 2000 Championship has a combined 124 IndyCar starts. However, if you remove Colton Herta from the equation, they have 6. If you further remove R.C. Anderson, they have 0. But don't worry, because the field still has a Daytona 500 trophy thanks to Austin Cindric. By the time Kyffin Simpson was born in October 2004, his future teammate Scott Dixon was already an IndyCar champion. Here's what the other IndyCar drivers were doing when Dixon won his first title. Nolan Siegel also wasn't born yet. These guys were all younger than 5. These guys are starting their racing careers. These guys were in junior formula. Ryan Hunter-Reay was in Champ Car, Takuma Sato was in F1, and Elio Castroneves and Ed Carpenter were both in IndyCar alongside Scotty D. Joe Dawson holds the record for least number of career laps led at the 500 as a winner, with only 2. He achieved this in 1912 after race lead Ralph De Palma retired with only 4 to go, resulting in Dawson picking up the lead and cruising the checkers with only 2 laps left. To put in perspective how minuscule 2 laps is, here are a few drivers who have led more laps at Indy than Dawson has. Jack Harvey, Stephen Wilson, Kyle Larson, Oliver Askew, EJ Viso, Kyffin Simpson, Spencer Piggott, Kyle Collette, Alex Barron, Bertrand Baguette, Townsend Bell, and Devlin DeFrancesco. Matthew Brabham won the 2012 USF 2000 title, the 2013 Pro Mazda title, and finished 4th in the 2014 Indy Lights Series, making for a really impressive road to Indy career. However, he's only made 2 IndyCar starts in the past 12 years. In the meantime, he's ran in Formula E, Stadium Super Trucks, V8 Supercars, GT4, Australian S5000, Trans Am, and IMSA LMP2s. Mario Andretti holds the record for 3rd most third-place finishes in a career with 33. Until just this year at St. Pete, the most recent race that Will Power drove in where he wasn't sponsored by Verizon was Sonoma in 2009. That race took place so long ago that the grid featured names like Mario Moraes, Hideki Muto, Rafael Matos, Robert Dombros, and Richard Antonucci. Greg Ray didn't finish better than 21st in points in his first 2 IRL seasons. He then won the championship in 1999 and probably didn't finish better than 13th in any of his following seasons. Speaking of Ray's 1999 season, he finished 21st in the first 3 races of the season before going on to win the title. The most recent driver to finish 21st in the first races of an IndyCar season? That's right, Stingray Robb. Will he win the championship this year too? Probably not. The Fulford Miami Speedway board track probably holds the record for the shortest lived track in IndyCar history. It held its first race in February 1926 and was promptly destroyed in September 1926 by a hurricane. James Hinchcliffe had an IndyCar race for 60,000 seconds and lost by 0.008 seconds. I pressed the random tab on Racing Graphics until I found something IndyCar related once again. It took me 1 try until I landed on the 1992 Indianapolis 500, won by Al Unser Jr. This was also the 500 where Jovi Marcello lost his life in a practice accident, and the one where Roberto Guerrero bended on the pace laps after starting for the pole. In October of 1993, Nigel Mansell was both the defending kart champion and the defending Formula 1 champion. Oriole surveyed over 14 teams across his nearly 20 years in the American Open wheel. PPI, Sigma Autosport, Pac West, Patrick, Coyne, Newman Haas, KV, Forsyth, Rahal, Dreyer and Reinbold, Panther, Andretti, Penske, and Schmidt-Peterson. If you want to count the IndyCar pace car, this goes up to 15. Jimmy Spencer once drove a Champ car around Sebring in 2002 because Chip Ganassi bet him $500 he wouldn't fit in the car. He got the money. Charlie Kimball and Connor Daly are both famous recent IndyCar drivers who are diabetic. But the first diabetic driver in Indy history was Howdy Wilcox, who finished second on debut in 1932, but was banned from running any other races because of his condition, despite other drivers clamoring for him to be reinstated. Wilcox later sued Indy for slander as he claimed the check labeled him as epileptic and not diabetic. Howdy Wilcox, of course, is not to be mistaken with Howdy Wilcox, another open-wheel driver who won the 1919 Indianapolis 500. The two were unrelated despite both having the same name and both having the same profession, as diabetic had his real name was Howard Samuel Wilcox, and 500 winner had his real name was Howard Omer Wilcox. The 1938 National Championship had 2 races. The 1946 National Championship had 77 races. Marco Andretti had the exact same average start and average finish in IndyCar at exactly 12.5. He also had the exact same average start and average finish position in just 2013 at 8.9. The last time 2 races were held on the same day in IndyCar was in 2014, when rain in Toronto forced race 1 of that year's Toronto Indy doubleheader to move to a Sunday morning, with the second race happening later that afternoon. Tony Kanaan got a podium in both the races. The 2020 Indy 500 was the only 500 not to be held during the month of May. Jacques Villeneuve won the 500, the Kart Championship, F1 Rookie of the Year, and the F1 Championship all in a span of about 3.5 years. Alex Palou was already 4th overall in road course wins among the entirety of American open wheel history, and 2 more would put him ahead of Mario Andretti in P3. However, on ovals, he's only 67th overall, with less oval wins than Andre Ribeiro and Tony Stewart. Since 2006, Scott Dixon finished outside the top 5 in points only twice. Canadian NASCAR legend Andrew Ranger got a podium in his second Champ Car start at Monterey in 2005 driving for Conquest Racing. The craziest part is that he was only 18. Slightly related to the last fact, Ranger's teammate that year in Champ Car was Nelson Philippe, who himself was also 18 when the season began, likely making this the youngest team in American open wheel history. To add to this, Philippe actually made his debut the previous year in Champ Car when he was just 17. For context, Nolan Siegel was 19 when he made his IndyCar debut. Pocono Raceway once had 2 separate incidents of spectators running onto the track in the same USAC race in the 1970s. Kenny Brack won Kart Rookie of the Year in 2000 despite already being a 500 winner and IRL champion. This year, Santino Ferrucci broke the record for most consecutive complete 500s with 8. Meaning he's run a clean 4,000 race miles at the Speedway and still never finished outside the top 10 once. Over the last 30 seasons of Indy Lights/Indy Next competition, the only 2 champions never to make a single start in IndyCar were David Eppingham and Jean-Carl Vernet. The 1996 Indy 500 was the first to be held under IRL sanctioning and famously featured a ton of drivers that nobody had ever heard of before. Coming into the race, the field combined for just 14 top-level American open wheel victories, with 10 of those coming from just Danny Jan Geis and Arie Luyendyk. In comparison, Kart's US 500 featured 133 top-level American open wheel wins. The 1916 Indy 500 was 300 miles. Apparently, the track changed the mileage to make it more appealing to fans, and the race also only had 21 starters since quite a few drivers were off fighting World War I. The 2005 Champ Car Rookie of the Year was Timo Glock. The 1964 USAC National Championship was 13 races. AJ Foyt won 10 of them and crashed out of the other 3, en route to the championship. Eddie Cheever was the only driver not to use an Oldsmobile engine in the 2000 IRL season, as he was powered by an Infinity unit. Sebastian Bourdais had the same amount of poles and wins in Champ Car, at 31. For the 4th time, I pressed the random tab on Racing Reference until I found something IndyCar related. It took me 4 tries until I reached the 1987 Grand Prix of Long Beach won by Mario Andretti. It was the 2nd Long Beach Grand Prix in a row, he lapped the entire grid to do it, and he also led from flag to flag. And finally, Helio Castroneves was a combined 0.26 seconds shy of winning 6 Indianapolis 500s.